That's about it. I don't know whether or not there needs to be anything more than that. That whether people want to hear a blabbering politician go much longer than that, I'm quite unsure about that, given the lunch hour.
Okay, well, thank you. I will dive in. You did answer one of the questions we have in front of me, but let's see what we can do.
Oh, what was that?
Where your constituency office was going to be located.
Yeah, hopefully that's we're fingers are crossed. It's pretty much a done deal. It's just a matter of going off to Victoria to get the final blessing of what needs to be done, security wise and other things like that, and then we just start with tenant improvement at City Hall.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to dive in with questions. Again, I will remind our panelists, if you have questions specific for Mike, please send them to me in the Q&A or privately in the chat, and I'll ensure that we're not asking the same question several times. We do only have an hour, and I would like to make sure that we stay on track and get as many questions answered as possible. So I will start with the first. As a champion for the environment at City Hall, can we count on your continued support for the greening of Visaki via support for elimination of foam and plastic?
Wow. You put it on a tee for me. Thank you. Softball. Love that. It was actually a group of people, Sarge and Bal Saberwal from Copytech, that I sat down with them, I don't know how many years ago, where we started for the very first time and working with the Culsa Credit Union that was there and providing a different product. I'm trying to remember what it was a nut leaf that was there that had a product that could be suffice for getting rid of all the foam that was there. Along with doing that, we were also working with the city because it's not just about styrofoam, but it's also about the cooking oil that's there as well. And so, yes, the short answer is yes. I want to be able to work to get rid of the styrofoam, the single-use styrofoam that we have out there, because there's no way for places that are out there to be able to take that and clean it and reuse it as it sits in today's world that's there. I think we're at a tipping point, or we've been at a tipping point for a number of years, where people are looking for a reason not to buy styrofoam. And I think is the sooner that we get to the consumers not having that ability to choose it and having other products that are out there that do it just the same, then that's great. The key to Visaki that's just slightly different is that the food vendors that are out there are just handing away their product that's there. Nothing's for sale, so that they're trying to do it so they can get to the most amount of people. But I'm sure as the world evolves away from styrofoam or polystyrene, as they'll refer to it, it shouldn't be something that we can't see on the horizon over the next few Visakis.
So nothing with regards to legislation to push for that or change or anything of that nature?
As far as being the new person on the block, I'm not privy to any new legislation that's coming forward. We do meet as a caucus coming up in a couple of weeks to go over all of that stuff that's there. And I'm sure that my conversation with George Heyman would be along those lines, because I know that Green Energy BC has all of those kinds of things that are built into it. And whether or not there's a styrofoam ban from a provincial point of view, I'm not sure. I know Metro Vancouver has put that on their lobby.
Okay. The Balsar Community Foundation is staging Run Surrey Run as a virtual event in June, and we need help to make this an annual event for Surrey. A letter of support would be a good start. Would you be willing to do that? Submitted by Wayne.
And somebody's going to have to fill me in. How would this work, and who's the benefactor of this?
The Balsar Community Foundation, which I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with.
It's new.
It's a new foundation, specifically creating a run.
Well, I'm a big fan of supporting community organizations that support, give back to the community. So it would be hard for me to say yes in this format without knowing what actually this foundation of this organization is. I mean, if it's something that fits in with the community, writing a letter is very easy to get it going. Inaugural events are always the hardest things to do. So it would be nice to sit down with them to take a look at what a 5-year goal is.
Okay. So Wayne, if you're on our webinar, I would suggest you reach out to set up that meeting. 3, the COVID pandemic has hit one of Cloverdale's largest employers, the Elements Casino, Fraser Downs racetrack extremely hard. The casino has been totally shut down since March of 2020, and the racetrack has closed since March 13th, 2020 to September 30th, 2020, after which time our race meet went for 25 days up until December 26th, 2020. The casino slot machines generate approximately 70% of the funding we receive for standardbred horse racing. Thus far in 2021, we are receiving no funding or assistance for our business or sport. All of the local people involved directly and indirectly are becoming desperate, not just for themselves and families, but also for the health and well-being of their equine athletes. We'd appreciate your views and thoughts you may have with regards to ongoing dilemma and the future. And this was submitted by Nigel Holmes from Harness Racing BC.
Well, Nigel, I understand the pain that's there. I mean, it's the casino provides revenue to different streams that are out there. With regards to receiving funding, I would say that there's two areas that are there. It falls underneath the same umbrella. So there's a small business grants that are out there, where when you take a look at your business plan that you have in your previous year and what your decrease in revenue is, that you can access those grants that are there. It's a $330 million amount of money that's there. They're nearing about, and it's a first come first serve. So I would say to Nigel that you need to get your application into that right away. They're sitting at about 50% of the money has been kind of spoken for and qualified for at this point in time. There will be a requirement to have an accountant provide the recovery plan for this to be able to qualify. That cost of the accountant is picked up by the provincial government. And so the grants that are available are there so that there's $15,000 to $30,000 that would be available to them. And if they could link it into a tourism aspect of how that's hit them as well. And I'm not sure just exactly how the tourist flavor would actually hit harness racing, but if that was a qualifier as well, then there would be an additional $15,000 that's there. So there would be the ability for them to make application for up to $45,000 if it was tourism based on the criteria that's there. And I can tell you from two people that I've assisted through the system, they've been able to get their return emails to say that yes, they are qualified based on the information that they provided, and now they've been asked for their recovery plan, and one has just asked for more information. They've done all of those back and forths within 5 to 6 business days.
Okay, thank you. Along the same lines, we've had a number of members that have been faced with just awful situations where under the federal program for rent subsidization, under the previous iteration, when the landlord was required to agree and apply for the business, their landlords refused. And as a result, there were businesses lost, other businesses are barely holding on. The new iteration is slightly different, but this is only a part of the puzzle. And our businesses in our community need help. What can you offer us in terms of a greater understanding as to when we can see things get better or more support coming from the government?
Well, I mean, I think Rebecca, I just explained for the harness racing industry, it would be the same. It would be the same grant that would be available to them as well. And if they can demonstrate, and we're not basing things like off of T4s or stuff like that. We're just looking at the books that are there. And if you can demonstrate that there's a dip in your business, and if you were to receive the grant money, how you would apply that to enhance your business as you move yourself out of this recovery area that's there. So all of that is available to business right now. And it's a quick turnaround. With regards to when do we get back to normal, I wish I knew the answer to that question. I mean, when we take a look at what we are with our vaccination rates that are coming around the corner, hopefully in February, looking at 500,000 doses per week to go out there. I think once the vaccine it's reached its saturation point and the herd immunity comes into play, I think you could start seeing things lifting itself up. I optimistically and have no science based behind all of this. I'd like to use the phrase, I'm looking forward to Christmas in July. With the hope that when we get around to the end of April, we'll have a very good idea as to how successful the vaccines are, what new vaccines have come into play, so that we can purchase additional vaccines that are out there, and what the delivery rate is going to be, and hoping all along that this whole issue around vaccine hesitation doesn't lift up.
Okay. Several things arising from your responses. First, we've received a request from our attendees for you to share that information with regard to the grants. If you could send that to our office, we'll be happy to share with our members who request it. I also am curious as to whether those grants are available for not-for-profits and community organizations as well as for business.
There are some not-for-profit stuff that's inside of there, but I'm not 100% sure. It's mainly, it's meant to capture small business. And I think if you look at the definition of small business, it may fall into there, but the only people that I've dealt with directly are the business community. So I'm sure the 2-pager, we can make sure that my CA gets it to you, how clear it is. And if there needs to be further clarification, we can reach out to Minister Kalan.
Okay. Speaking about the coming vaccine and health, we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming hospital. Can you give us a rough idea as to the various stages of development, where it sits, who's involved, and how our members and community can get our voices heard in its development?
Yeah, so it's last year there was a step where an RFP went out for some drawings from an architect to take a look at some of the high level ends of how it would fit on a footprint that's there across the street from KPU. From there, it will go into the budget of this year as a line item to create the business plan which is the procedure that's there. So the land is there. With regards to somebody saying, but it doesn't have its name on it. I mean, it's provincially owned land that's under the name of KPU. That'll just be transferred over and done that way. As far as the planning goes for the actual building the hospital, that'd come out in the next budget that would be there, that would allocate X amount of dollars in that overall phase that's there. As far as consultation goes, I would assume, and that's my assumption, with not having a conversation with anybody within the health system, that there has to be community consultation that takes place, because there's going to be some pretty interesting effects that will come through the community. I mean, like every other hospital that's new to a metropolitan area, it creates a community that's all the way around it, and that has to be part of it, whether or not it's something as simple as housing that's nearby, or addressing a certain intersection that's going to be blocks away from there, and how people get across the street. So that would be the understanding that I would have, that there would be some sort of community consultation with stakeholders as to how it would get traffic in, traffic out, and that would either be coordinated through the provincial government and or coordinated at the same time with the city of Surrey.
I'm going to just put it out there straight away that as the advocacy committee of the chamber, we have already been working on the and looking at the effects of this development for several years, including the transit as well as the population effects. So I will ask that you pass it on to those who are looking for stakeholders and need our input. We expect to be part of that consult and part of that input. It's taken years of expertise already, and we'd like to make sure that those voices are heard. Specifically with regard to the transportation as well. I'm just looking at the other questions that we have here. Is there any new potential COVID support funding specific to investing? Oh, well, that's already been asked. I apologize.
Was the answer yes?
Well, you've already addressed it with your discussion of the grants and your promise to send that information to our offices. The Cloverdale business community is interested in helping the city of Surrey redevelop a public green space that is a focal point in the historic downtown. We're wondering if there's any specific funding that may have arisen through the COVID pandemic or any other avenue that you know of that might support us in that effort.
Um, I guess the answer is yes. There's provincial funding for clubs and groups that are out there that are trying to achieve some similar things like that. I know that there's a project going on in one of the parks, one of the organizations looking for some funding from Minister Mark with regards to how that sports athletic culture works. Without knowing what the details of what the ask is, there's no new funding for projects like that, but there is already funding that's already in place to assist groups. I mean, the one thing about the provincial government when it comes to funding, it's maybe it's the wrong example right now, but when you take a look at the Cloverdale Arena that was scheduled to start being built back in 2018, and it was reversed. Well, provincial funding isn't there to provide amenities to the city in the way that the city's taxes are supposed to do. But when it comes to projects where the community has come together, then that kind of funding has some applications to it.
Okay.
But if you send that my way, we can take a look at it and forward it off to Minister Mark.
All right, I'll make sure the parties do so. Would you support a plan to coincide with the US plans for 100 days of wearing a mask in public?
Wow. Wanting to coincide with the U.S. government, I'm not sure how I want to answer that question. Maybe I'll answer it after the 20th when there's a new government. For the most part, the subject matter experts of Dr. Bonnie Henry and her staff and the Ministry of Health have done very well, and we don't have the level of exposure that certain areas of the US have. And so I'm not the subject matter expert, but we all know that masks is a part of it. It is not the sole part of it. And we're seeing changes in mask use. And when you go into medical facilities, that they're no longer allowing you to walk in with a cloth mask. You actually have to have a 3 or 4 layer medical mask to go inside of that. So I don't know what the science is around this thing that U.S. President Biden is talking about, but I'd like to follow the country that isn't at the top of the list in COVID infections and deaths.
That's probably a good bet, although I believe the 100 days of mask wearing has come from the Biden directive, rather than administration, such as it is. On that topic, I'm waiting for more questions from our attendees. So if they would like to pop in the questions, that would be great, but I have my own. We recently, obviously it's a new year, and we are still adjusting to the pandemic. We know, however, that certain things happen every year, such as New Year's, such as the upcoming Valentine's Day, when people expect to go out, enjoy restaurants, do some shopping for their loved ones, what have you. We know these things are coming. We know that the people are going to look to try to live as normally as possible. And we know it affects business, particularly New Year's was deeply affecting business, specifically the restaurant and hospitality sector. The last minute notice with regard to the restriction on alcohol sales on New Year's Eve caused enormous loss to the restaurant and hospitality sector because they were not informed ahead of time. They'd already invested in staffing, in supplies, in bookings. And I know several restaurants that are barely holding on as it is. This was going to help them get through very, very, very trying times. Can we get a commitment from you and your government that such last minute notices will not be happening again in the future, that we will be given consultation and advance notice, so these kinds of things do not cause losses to the sector or to business at all?
To the specific of that day, that was a you know, a comment that came out of the health industry and Dr. Bonnie Henry. The one thing I can tell you that I know for sure, and where BC becomes successful as opposed to other jurisdictions, is we don't give everybody a week's worth of warning that this is what's going to happen next week, so that people go willy-nilly to get around the rule before the rule comes in. And that's one of the things that separates what BC's done as opposed to what's happened in other places. So I think now, when we take a look at what the new normal is, when we take a look at Christmas and how it panned out, when we take a look at the other upcoming events that are there, I think that, you know, you're right, Rebecca. It's nobody, any of the constituents that have called me, right down to the mom with, you know, 5 kids and a husband that can't even go out to a restaurant and enjoy a meal by themselves because their number is prohibitive by themselves. Um, but to open it up, and put more people into a building at a time when we actually have kind of suppressed everything, it has a certain level of irresponsibleness. And we saw it in the states where they opened up and they closed down, and we saw it in Ontario and Quebec. Right now, if you want to go have a meal in a restaurant in Quebec, you're taking it out. You're not sitting inside, the same as Ontario. So I think what we've done in BC is, while there's been gain that's there from a health standpoint, and there's been pain from a business standpoint, and nobody disputes that, but it's the options that are there are, I think we've done a very good job in keeping the most of the restaurant industry open to the level that it is at right now. And there's some of the restaurants have been very creative, that I've dealt with personally on how their takeout is. Nobody is saying it's like it was a year ago, for sure, and it's not going to be until till this pandemic is over. But in the meantime, I understand the pain and the angst that it caused because of what Dr. Henry and Adrian Dix had done from a ministry point of view. But those are the subject matter experts that said this is what we have to do to squash everything. And the numbers are coming back to show that we did not a bad thing that was there. Like the numbers are coming down. So I'm not trying to deflect it or whatever it is, but I mean, Ontario and Quebec do business in one way and BC does it in another way. And I think we're far more successful than what they are.
I would tend to agree in the comparison with Ontario and Quebec. However, I disagree with last minute notice, which is specifically and clearly going to cause harm to the economic sector. We need to all work on this together, and we have to all understand that we won't survive without each other. And to spring something on somebody so that, particularly an entire sector, to avoid people getting around rules. Well, people got around rules that were going to want to do that anyway. So I think it needs to be taken back that when you know something is coming and you know there is a sector that is trying desperately to work with you, we're not talking about an industry that was only going to open for that one night. Restaurants have been allowed to dine in for quite a while. And so there was anticipated loss. So I think it behooves us to require that you take that back to your government and to the people that make those decisions, and make sure that consultation and due respect is given to the community that is desperately trying to be on board and yet survive at the same time.
No, message heard and message taken.
Great. I am now finally getting more questions. So let's see what we've got. We already know that the rodeo will not be happening in 2021. What would you like to see happen to utilize the rodeo grounds?
I'm not sure. I don't know what other groups that were out there. I mean, I remember the day that the Surrey Glaciers played baseball out there, and then covered it up, and rodeo came and went, and they went back to a baseball thing. I'm not sure what the question is specifically looking for. Like, are they looking for a substitution or have the rodeo with nobody in the stands? Or I'm not sure what the question really is.
Okay, it does seem to be a little bit of a city oriented question. So I'll move on to the next one. This is from Merle Scott.
Hey, Merle.
Can you tell me your stance with regard to the new Surrey police service. I know you were previously for keeping the RCMP, and now you have turned when you ran for the provincial NDP.
Well, I'm glad I'm in this format right now so I can just put this to an end because I've said it enough times that it should have been there. I have never taken the side of RCMP or municipal police force ever, not once. What I said in the 2018 municipal election with the group of people I ran for was we would do a cost benefit analysis, publish everything that was there with pros and cons, and let the public have their choice on a referendum. I've never once said that one organization was better than the other. I've just simply said, I want what's best for the city. I want to live in the safest city in all of British Columbia. And whatever that is whatever that is. Clear and cut.
Okay, that was during your time with Surrey First. But now under BC NDP, you were against a referendum.
No, I did not say I was against a referendum. A referendum is something that the city has to ask for.
Actually, legislation doesn't say that. But I will move on to the next one because of time. There are rumors of more productions heading to Hollywood North. What would you like to see happen to promote our area and this industry?
Well, I mean, the provincial government has their part with tourism, and the city government has their part with working within the movie industry, and they do a great job. I think at one time there was 300 film days that were happening in the city. I think that the tourism and the movie industry can benefit from all of that, and Cloverdale is one of those spots that seems to be a place of choice. And we have the movie studios that are around. So as far as what's going on, I mean, the tax breaks that are already there, the dollar being where it is, it becomes advantageous for people to come to British Columbia and specifically Surrey to do that filming. What added things can the provincial government do? I'm not sure. I know from a city point of view, they do great work. They make it very easy for them to hold their productions that are up here. I think from a BC point of view, we just keep on letting the people know from Hollywood that we're just up the coast, and things work out, and we have the talent and the expertise that's already in Metro Vancouver to be able to hold all those things.
All righty. Scott, have you got any other additional questions?
Not on the top of my head. Give me a minute. Oh, here we go.
Okay. The cultural sector is important to the economy and building neighborhood safety, cultural understanding, and empathy. When on council, we enjoyed your support. How can you support the Museum of Surrey, Surrey Archives, and New Clayton Community Center?
Well, again, that comes out of Minister Mark's part of her portfolio that's out there. I mean, as far as support goes, I mean, and I've been a big fan of it. I mean, when the museum in Cloverdale got to where it was, and I remember being a part of it as part of City Council, where they were talking about how many phases to put it in. And at that time, Al Cleaver was one of the people, along with Bill McNamara, trying to move that forward, and I think I did a fairly good job of convincing people that it was time to do it in one final phase, not phase 2, not phase 3. So without knowing what the needs are, the current needs are, I'm not able to give a specific, but if there are specific needs, I agree. Our arts and culture and history is imperative to a city as it grows. If you forget what was there, you don't know what's in front. It's a simple concept.
Okay. Can parents be advised quickly when there's an outbreak in schools? 60,000 people have asked for a mask mandate. Why is this being ignored? What harm will it cause? Is it just to save face? Specifically concerned, that's coming from a teacher, I believe.
Yeah, well, I am not a teacher. I'm not closely into the Minister of Education, the new Minister of Education's kitchen, so to speak. I do understand that there are people that are concerned about it, but whenever I hear Dr. Henry talk about the way things that are in schools, I'm comfortable with how her answers are there. The BC Teachers Federation has met with the government and have worked through their items that are there. And that's where that item needs to be dealt with, not on a single constituency, but as a provincial body takes a look at it, and every rule is applied the exact same way. When we take a look at schools and the numbers that come out of the schools, and there's statistics, but they're smaller than the general population, so that indicates that what's being done in the school is done well. So they're not above the general population. But I understand the angst from a teacher that's inside of there. So I know the teachers that I deal with, they've created the culture of a mask inside of their classroom and outside of their classroom. And so as it sits right now, like everything else that's coming down with the COVID world of science, it's very dynamic. It's not static. What we saw a year ago to what we see today is a completely different thing. And I have to bow to the health authorities to make those decisions.
What we've seen so far is that each school board district seems to be making their own way, being very different from what's happening in Langley and other constituencies. What we would like, and what I'm seeing being asked from the people in our area, is that our concerns be taken back to the ministry, that we get the same treatment, that there be some sort of ubiquity in the way policies are applied. Can you commit to doing that?
So Rebecca, are you telling me the Surrey School Teachers Association is not being heard as an organization?
From the most part, they the words that are coming back to me from STA members as well as some of the executives.
Okay, so but I'm like, I get it that some of the members of the Surrey Teachers Association won't be liking it, but is the Surrey Teachers Association themselves feel that they're not being heard? I've not spoken with them.
I've heard from some, yes. But it's not just about the teachers. It's also about the support staff, about various other people in the schools.
Yep.
And I have heard from innumerable people that work in schools, from EAs, from other different designations, that when they are given an exposure notice, they are required to leave and take a test and isolate. During that time, they are not given sick leave. They have to use their own they're not given accommodation for that. They're having to use their own sick time and vacation time. And when that dries out, they are without financial reimbursement for being exposed at a job they're required to be at. And when they live in a family, their spouse is in turn having to test and isolate as well. And it's a financial hardship to families and our community at large when people are not being given accommodation, when they are, for all intents and purposes, frontline workers. So these sorts of things need to be heard, not just from the Teachers Association or the Teachers Federation, but from the supports and the other ramifications of these policies that are happening.
Okay, fair enough. I have a meeting with the association coming up, I believe, next week or the week after. But I can tell you that I haven't heard any specifics of anybody going without any money, and I've got specific friends that are teachers that have tested positive, and what their experiences are, and I can tell you they're not like what you've just explained to me. So I'm not going to debate what's what, but I'm just those are my personal firsthand circumstances over the people that I deal with and that are considered friends of mine.
Okay. Well, please do take the concerns back. It is not just a onesie twosies. This is widespread, and it is a concern. And it has been brought forward to me as advocacy chair, as well as a member of the community, and out there, well known. Okay, I'm just checking the questions coming in. Transit transportation to Cloverdale is substandard. What is your commitment to helping us in regards to improvement for that?
What qualifies it as substandard? I'm not aware of TransLink making that comment. I've read the last little bit that came out about what the future expansions were that were there. So I didn't see that underserved or substandard part. So maybe I missed it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize. But it has been a topic for our advocacy committee for a number of years. And it has been a grave concern for a number of employers in our area that have difficulty with attracting employees who can get to and from their jobs because buses are few or far between, if at all. The schedules are not regular. People end up being in their cars regularly because the transit in the bus is not reliable or even present for most areas. Campbell Heights specifically is affected by that, which is outside of your community, your constituency, but does receive service from the Cloverdale Chamber. However, it's also a problem in the Clayton area and downtown. I know that when operating the casino had difficulty with transportation for their employees as well as other employers. So it is definitely substandard and has been for years.
Okay. Because that was one of the things I looked at when I was looking to set up my office. How close was it to transit? What was the frequency that was there? And I didn't. It's my. I apologize, but I did not see it as something that was different from another area where I lived for a while. So I'm not sure if it's just an overall Metro Vancouver thing, but my hope is that when SkyTrain moves itself to where it's going to move itself, and you have a brand new hospital center that's going to be on the other side of things, there's always been the mantra with SkyTrain, you build it and it'll come. Where transit, where you build it and they come. I know over in the Fraser Heights area for a number of years, they didn't have any transit to a certain area. And once they got to a population base, then transit opened itself up. So I'm not sure where the formula is for Cloverdale with respect to the SkyTrain moving down Fraser Highway and how that'll affect Clayton, Fleetwood, and downtown Cloverdale. But I would make an assumption that was there. But I read their last report and I didn't see anything that was that way, and I didn't see anything that was from the mayor's council that was asking for those things that are there. So the next level would be with the MLA's meeting with the city when they're supposed to. I don't know what that meeting's going to take place, but it needs to be advocated from both the mayor's council and us as well. Because it's the mayor's council that basically is the pusher of the regional transit that's out there, unless they've changed something in the last 2 years.
Right. So is that a commitment to take our concerns to that group once that meeting happens? Yeah,
I mean, when you forward me the exact what your findings were that are there, then I'll have something in my hands to bring forward rather than we said this. I'd like to actually see the data that you guys have got to show that the underserved part is there. Because, like I said, when I went to set up my office, it looked like the service was adequate to get people over to that area there to visit me.
We'll do that.
Okay, please.
The attendees are asking for you to iterate what your top 5 objectives would be, and particularly with regard to if you have a portfolio that you're in charge of, and how you expect to achieve that.
Oh, well, I don't know about top 5 because I'd hate to give the 5th one and then the 6th one comes around and I think it's more important than the 5th one. So I don't like to nail down things like this. But my first and foremost objective is to make sure that the riding is serviced the way that it needs to be serviced. And I sit on the standing committee for finance within the province, and also with it escaped me right now. It always escapes me, the other standing committee that I'm on, public audits, with those things that are there. So when it comes down to listening to the community as to how provincial funding can come into play, I think just the fact that I sit on that standing committee that's there, and how we have to go around and listening to the various communities as to what's going to take place in the world of COVID. Obviously, it'll be done through Teams or Zoom to get the feedback that's there. And I don't know exactly how long all of this takes, and I'm going through, I think it's about 1,350 pages to refresh myself as to what happened last year to get myself familiar with this position that's there. But it's pretty exciting when you think about being able to be part of the provincial budget and what's coming to Cloverdale, especially with the hospital that's there. So if I'm going to prioritize things that are there, I want to prioritize it so that it affects everybody that's in the riding, and it's more about infrastructure. When we take a look at what schools and what school capacity's at, and what the additions that are on the way to come, I want to make sure the budget reflects those things that we've talked about in the election campaign, to ensure that those spots in the schools are done, so that when we open up an area or redevelop an area that's there, that the infrastructure that's there as well. Top five. I said it at the beginning. I'm a people person, and we need to design outreach that reaches the people that are there. Myself and my CA have all of these very, very unique ideas as to how we can open up people to what it is that we can bring to your constituency in a COVID style of distancing, and it's becoming very difficult. But just looking at the previous budget and trying to build the budget out of our office for the upcoming year, our hope is that as the summer progresses, that we can get out there and start making sure that people understand what the provincial government is there to do for you. And that's as simple as I can put it. Once I understand how all of these other things are accessible, how all the funding formulas that are in place are accessible to the people within Surrey Cloverdale, I'll probably develop top item number 4 and 5.
Okay. Has the government, or will the government, give a statement to support the Indian diaspora here advocating for the farmers back home and their mistreatment?
I don't know what the government stand will end up being. I know that us as MLAs, we've taken our positions to the minister that's there. We've made comment. MLA Singh has made her comments about what has taken place with regards to happening in India and her portfolio as racism secretariat. The provincial government, I can tell you, is very aware of what's taken place back there. And for those people that are having their rallies and whatnot, I'm very happy that they're doing it in a relatively safe and COVID environment that's out there. They're all being done peaceful, and they're all doing their demonstrations that are there, and they're highlighting what it is that they're missing. Whether or not there's a provincial statement that comes out of there in any kind of support for what's happening over here, support for the workers over there, I'm not aware of what's coming up. But like I said at the earlier part, the caucus is sitting down as a group in a couple of weeks in a Zoom format for a few days to go over some of the things that are there. And I'm not sure if that's on the agenda right now.
Okay.
But on that note, as horrible as it is over there, there's a message that's being portrayed that's a good message. And when I was part of the city's agricultural advisory, I was the person that went out there, and we started the Sundays in September as far as the restaurants, and supporting local, and going to a local restaurant and getting food that comes straight out of the area. And with what Surrey is there's never a bad time to raise the issue about buying local, supporting local, and keeping it local. And I think that's one of the messages that we see with those farm workers that are there, that they're talking about how they keep their local economy going, and how they need to keep their local economy going. And that's a message that I want to make sure that resonates within the Cloverdale area.
Thank you. What's your position on faith-based worship services? There's been no evidence given that worship services cause viral spread. Can you get evidence, or why wouldn't churches be treated the same as schools?
Well, first off, the schools got data that indicate how that works. Secondly, you can take a look at elsewhere in the states where they've had outbreaks in churches. But the thing that's there is, this goes back down to taking the subject matter experts stuff and bringing it forward to keeping it down to what's there. There was a for lack of a better word, a petition from 38 faith-based organizations that was thanking us for the actions that we have taken. Inside of those comments that were there were about that, a church is the building, it's not the institution, it doesn't stop. And I was reading that with the intent that these people that were talking about how they were happy about what's going on, they've adapted to various things so people can still worship. They just don't happen to all be in a building all at the same time. Um, there's churches where you drive up and you listen to a radio station and you do your thing. There's a church around the corner from me that has a tent that's set up on the outside, and it looks like there's the ability to tap your donation. So I'm not convinced that anything other than what Dr. Henry and Minister Dix is doing is in the best interest of the entire community at this time, and no different than how we weren't able to go out and celebrate at Christmas. This is just one of those short periods of time where we have to do it this way because that's what's working for us in BC.
On the topic of staying safe and revisiting again our COVID topic, there has been in Surrey as well as other places, specifically the Lower Mainland in British Columbia, growing homelessness and desperation due to the economic fallout, but other issues as well. We are wondering what you can do to support us as Cloverdale is looked at as for temporary and longer term housing for homeless. What kind of supports can you give us to help deal with that issue? Because there is definitely homelessness and sundry issues here in downtown Cloverdale specifically.
Yeah, no, I think that you've hit the nail on the head when like nobody's saying it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's the level of homelessness is it's Metro Vancouver wide, it's Canada wide, it's a North American phenomenon that's around. I think the difference now is that we have a commitment from the provincial government to provide that kind of housing. We're seeing housing units popping itself up, announcements on a regular basis. The last one I believe was in Nanaimo. There's been a number of places in the north end of Surrey that have got them, but at the same time, we've got companies that are right inside of the city that have the ability to do some modular homes. But we have to make sure that they are consulted as to where they're going, that it just doesn't get plunked without anybody saying what's what. And it's not to say that the not in my backyard theory doesn't come into play, but it has to be in consultation with the service groups and who's going to be able to provide that service that runs inside of it. It's not a matter of just erecting some housing and expecting the homeless people to walk in there and find comfort. There needs to be programs to support everything that's inside of it. And I'm pleased to say that when I was elected, that was the topics that were there within the housing part of things, and that we have the ability to do that. Green Timbers is seeing that right now with some purpose built housing that's going to be out there, and hopefully there'll be some area that we can work it out in Cloverdale that can support those people that are needing that on a regular basis.
What are your thoughts on the Surrey Safe Coalition defeating Councillor Hundal's motion to acknowledge Indigenous lands before each meeting?
Well, I haven't read it. I've only heard about it, and I've only seen it, and I do not understand why that would be something that would be so difficult to accept. When one of the last things that I was trying to achieve was that exact same thing in 2017, and I'd sat down with a number of members from the Kwantlen, Katzie, and Samiamo group about actually having their flag sit in City Hall and have those lands acknowledged before every meeting that was there. We were to the point of almost having it figured out which flag went on what side of everything that was there. So it was well consulted within the First Nations group that we have here in Surrey. And it just seemed like it was going to be something that was just a given for us to acknowledge those lands in which we are operating, in which we are speaking on, in which we are enjoying. And to lose that reflection, I'm flabbergasted. I do not understand. And like I said, it's just what I've read in the social media thing. I don't understand what the pushback would be to that. There are certain things that are out there that are motherhood issues, and this to me seemed like that was one of them.
Okay. So we're at 1 o'clock, just about. This ends at 1.
Yep.
Did you have any few things left to say as we close?
No, well, I mean, thanks for the opportunity. I mean, it's a new position, and it does not relate or translate on an even level with a city councilor, and it definitely doesn't translate to anything much like it in the fire service. But I think that there's a good understanding of who's responsible for what. And to move forward to what's there. I look forward to the day that there's an office and there's no COVID, so people can come in there to tell me what they think is the good thing. And I want to be able to listen to individuals, and I want to be able to listen to groups, and more importantly, an organization that's taken the time out of their day to get some people to come forward, usually on a volunteer basis, that are grassroots and understand the area and the issues that are nearest to them. Those are the ones that we need to value the most. Individuals have their opinion of everything, and a good individual will find an organization in which they can get their ideas to bring forward. And those are the kinds of people that I love to work around and work with. I've said it before, I don't shy on the fact that sometimes the answer that they get is not the answer that they were after. And I tell people all the time, I will help you to work within the rules. I will never help you work around them.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I will take this opportunity to demand you agree to come back again when you're further down in your mandate, when you are fully established in your office and have had an opportunity to get to know Cloverdale a little better. I think it would behoove you and us to have further discussions and ensure this connection continues. So
I'll take the demand me show up at another time as a little bit more perkier than a demand. So
you do. You have to answer to your constituents, and we're here to ask you to do so.
Well, until I stop answering, we don't need to demand. We'll just ask for them. I'll give them to you.
There you go. All right. Well, I thank you for your time. I thank you for all of our attendees. I did try to ensure that all questions were at least addressed, if not specifically verbalized as you've presented them, they were addressed. And I do hope you all stay safe and join us again in the near future for our next coffee and conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.